Welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow, and remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest for you. Give you a couple of words about my guest. Defiance, expectations, dedication, truth. Originally from Richmond, VA, that's Virginia, for those of y'all that don't know. Originally from Richmond, VA, please put your hands together for Mr. George Johnson. What's going on, brother?
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. No problem. First and foremost, welcome to the show. Welcome to the platform. And man, some of the words that I use to describe, we pretty much gonna talk about, the meaning behind those words and how that ties into your story. But first thing first, I want to talk a little bit about this book you have. It's a memoir, correct?
Yep, definitely. It's a memoir. And first and foremost, I appreciate you letting me on, on your platform, man. I like what you're doing, and I'm excited to be here. And Double Cross, man, I gotta take a deep breath because one, I'm your average guy. Well, I wouldn't say I'm your average guy, but I'm not an author, right? Well, I am now, but I never sought out writing a book was nothing I saw me doing or anything. It kind of started out with just a therapeutic component of what I was doing, just to deal with what I was dealing with. I'm a confident guy. I keep a lot of stuff to myself, like probably a lot of men do. And it came to a point where I just needed to start journaling and writing down stuff that I never shared with anyone, just stuff that I had went through that I was hurt about, just stuff I never shared with my mom, my girl, my homeboy, anything. And it got to a point where I had wrote 2 notebooks of just stuff. And basically, me just being an entrepreneur and having an entrepreneur mindset, I basically found a ghostwriter. They was like, look, this is my story. And I've been writing all this stuff down for months. And basically he was just compelled and was like, man, you got a crazy story and I would love to help package it together for you. And that's what happened. But to kind of summarize the book, it kind of tells my story growing up in Richmond, Virginia from a small guy. And it goes through all the ups and downs and the roller coasters that I went on, and kind of loop back just the demographic of where I'm from and what we, dealing with being from the hood, how it, no matter how far I got, I ended up coming back and being back home, dealing with just the court system and just like the crabs in the barrel, saying, and just all those things that come with just coming from the inner city.
Okay, now you know what? We're gonna talk a little bit about some of that. Now, we ain't gonna give all the book away or nothing like that because y'all gotta go out there and get that book. Okay, and we're gonna talk about where you can get it and all that in just a few. But first and foremost, man, you hit on something, okay? Man, now, okay, you're talking about Richmond, Virginia. Now, for those who are just unfamiliar, period. I mean, because you have people out there, hey, now me personally, I know, I just so happen to know geography. I know Richmond's not that far from Baltimore. I know it's not that far from other places as well, so I do understand like a little bit of the, life, here and there. But for those who have no clue whatsoever, for those people who've never been east of the Mississippi, okay, can you please explain to them just a little bit, just a little insight of what was life like for you growing up in Richmond, Virginia?
Got you. So you from Chicago. So right now you all hot and everybody know what's going on in Chicago. But when I was growing up, Richmond, Virginia actually was in the top 5 of murder capital in the United States. So we dealt with kind of the same things that Chicago dealing with right now. Right. But basketball was always my pivot or my way out, or what kept me out of a lot of stuff. Now all my friends was doing stuff and in the streets, and I had brothers that still in and out of jail. But basketball was like my safe haven. I played AAU, so I traveled a lot on the weekend because we traveled up and down the East Coast and West for basketball tournaments. And my time after school was kind of in the gym or working on my game. So granted, all this stuff was going on around me. I wasn't per se in it, but that's what was around me, family-wise and just my friends. So, but I dealt with all the things that come with being in the hood, the killings, the way of life, the mentality, the generational curses, and just mindset of just like, this is how life goes, and this is how this was normalized and was regular around me. So the same stuff that you deal with in Chicago, but Richmond is a smaller city, clearly.
Well, man, and just sitting up here, listen, everything you just said sounds a lot like a certain well, I shouldn't even say a certain section of town. It sounds a lot like, the city and pretty much what's going on, as you said. And, as you said, when you were coming up, Richmond, Virginia was known for like the murder rate,
Right.
And that's not something you really want to be known, for, or known, like, hey, where you from, Richmond? Oh man, y'all do this, y'all do that. Trust me, I know, I get it sometimes. And like if I go to certain places that I know that's rough, and they ask where I'm from, yeah, I'm like, dude, like, yeah, are you serious? Like you. Anyway, okay, but no. So let's just talk a little bit about expectations and defiance, because sitting up here and I'm listening to you describe how it was coming up in Richmond. As I said, it reminds me a lot of certain like areas here in Chicago, certain pockets here in Chicago. So, man, if it ain't rap, if it ain't ball,
right,
I don't really know what it is, So, like, if you're not going down those two avenues, they say in the average, pretty much in the hood, you're not really going to survive the hood. The hood's going to take you and it's going to make you into what you don't want to be. And you become this expectation that's lower than what you originally had in your mind. So for you to beat these odds, as you said, basketball was your safe haven. Yeah, I'm out here hooping, but I'm not out here I'm traveling with a team. I have some structure, I'm seeing things, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Let me just ask now, you not going along with the norm, you having your own way of doing things. How was that received from others that you knew, like friends, family, what have you?
So, right, and so I did take a different approach to a certain extent, but just to touch on a part there where you just spoke about, where I'm from, you don't have all these different, I'm not from a big city like a New York or Miami or LA, so you're right, the options out was like, you either gonna do music or try to sports take you out, but if you didn't do that, the best that you could do was work at like a plant, like Philip Morris, where they make cigarettes at, or be the mailman. That was kind of like, that's the top. If you do that, you made it, and you kind of just ride that out. That was what you would do. That's the top that they get. That's the top that we get where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And so I just always had an entrepreneurial mindset, and I always knew that it had to be more. Now, basketball exposed me to different beautiful places. It took me different places. It put me around different kids that were from different backgrounds and those type of things. So it kind of exposed me that it got to be more out here. And where I'm from, we just don't have it. But leaving home might be the best bet. And so I was always kind of a little different, but I was always just tapped in with the hood because that's what was around me. And even though these different type of things was going on, I never participated. Now, not to go too far into the book, but one chapter I speak about how I almost didn't make it to school. And, a friend of mine that went to a prep school, I actually ended up going to prep school, and I left where I was from. And so as a kid, and people don't know what's a prep school is normally made up of these star athletes and rich kids that's from a lot of money. So kids that was doing drugs in high school, their parents like, hey, you're going to boarding school and you're going to go to school there. And then the athletes go there, they're on scholarship. And so it's a weird dynamic, a mix of people. People don't really notice when you go to a private school or a prep boarding school. So I did. And so to make a long story short, the summer after that year, I was back home, and one of the kids, my roommate, actually, he did coke. And it sounds crazy, but he was actually coming down the East Coast from Jersey, going to Florida. And he stopped in Richmond and was like, hey man, I know you don't do this or sell this, but you might know some people I can get some coke from. So I ended up introducing him to my friends, and to make a long story short, my friends robbed him at gunpoint and kidnapped him. And it spun out in court. The guy had got away, and basically I was getting charged, kingpin charges, as if I set it all up. And so I actually ended up being on the stand. I actually ended up being in court, and I was about to get charged for 5 years for this whole ordeal. And luckily, my friends that ended up doing the situation got up there and said that I didn't know about anything. I just introduced 2 friends, and that day is when I left to go away to college. But my life could have went a whole different route early. And so that right there just explained to you how it don't matter how I was moving, just my friends or just my situation or where I was at kind of almost led me right down into this black hole of what everybody else dealt with where I'm from.
And see, look, black man to black man, we don't talk enough about stuff like this. Seriously, we don't. Based off whatever, whether it's ego, whether it's, what have you. We really don't talk about enough stuff like this. Your life was almost taken down the wrong road. Now, you're from Virginia. Now, I've heard stories about, even I want to say Allen Iverson even went through that when he was in high school. So Virginia has a history. For those of you who don't know, Virginia has a history of doing this to young black men, okay? Cutting them down in their prime because they don't want them to get ahead in life. Their expectations of the young black men are very low. So even as you're saying, man, look, in my hood, these are the things that we had to do. If you wasn't doing these things, you was working over here at the factory, making cigarettes, getting cancer. Right. Or, man, if you really wanted to have a dream job, the dream job is being a mailman, So once again, I talk about expectations. I talk about defiance. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying.
Definitely.
These are the words that I picked out, okay? I didn't know George beforehand. These are just some words that I picked out, and this is how it's tying in. He chose, it's much more than that. And we're about to talk about that. So I talk about, I have this section called More Money, More Problems, because after all this, you, as the kids would say, you get out that jam, So now you're out of that and you're actually working, you're making money, okay? But not only are you making money, man, as you said, you always had the entrepreneur mindset, It's much more than just making money. We can really do something with this.
We could change lives. We could change our family lives.
Breaking generational curses. You spoke about it in the beginning. Breaking these curses, man. Defiance. I'm not going to let being from here define who I am to the world. I'm much more than that. I'm just from here. That's not who I am, And I know, let's just talk a little. We can probably spend a whole hour on this, but we only gonna spend a couple of minutes on this. But let's just really get into it, man. Let's talk about these family members, man. You had an incident with family members, man, sort of, lack of a better term, stabbing you in the back, or as the kids would say, hating on your productions, you know what I'm saying? So let's talk about that.
Got you. And so, like I said, my story, I build up until I get to basically the last 5 years of my life. I share a lot of personal stories of how my life could have went this way, but I was still able to just figure out a way to keep pushing, go to school. I went through a crazy situation where prohibit me to go play professionally across seas, but I entered straight into the working world, and I actually started out working with my brother. And there he had a mental health outpatient company, which was odd enough. And I just came there. I was like the little guy, just passing papers, putting staples and stuff. But while I was there, you know, at the time I had a great relationship with my brother. He's who I always looked up to. He was a star athlete before me. He was actually Mr. Basketball Virginia when we was coming up. So me and him was 10 years apart. But now, you know, I'm grown now. He's who he is, and I'm now learning the ins and outs of this business that he had. And basically, I had sat there for 2 years and learned all the ins and outs. And he was making a lot of money, and basically, me and his relationship started going left. Make a long story short, I had saved up my first $20,000 because I had got the confidence of just sitting around learning all the ins and outs of his business. It was like, I could do this myself. And so that's what I did. I ended up starting my own mental health company, working with the same demographic of kids that where I was from. And it took off. I started one of them. I started two of them. I had an opportunity to move here to Houston, start another one. In the midst of me excelling and taking all this knowledge that I knew and taking it to a place that no one around me ever took it, my relationship with my brother had went left. And so now I'm standing alone. I'm, you know, at this point, I'm making $80,000 a month. I'm taking care of our shared mother, our mutual mother, my mom. I was giving my mom $6,000 a month. I'm taking care of everything. And I'm living here. He's still back in Virginia, Northern Virginia area. And basically the Fed started calling. And what had happened was he got in trouble. He was doing fraud with this company. He had never paid company taxes for like 15 years. And I didn't know how I was getting looped in and everything. But what came to happen was that, you know, if you know anything how the feds work, when the feds run down on you, if you throw all these other people in, you can leverage and help yourself out. And so he basically came up with the idea to basically say that I was part of his company still. He didn't even control it, and I was like basically the man of his company. Really? And so it started this 4 years of me fighting the federal government, man. And it took a while for us to figure out where it was coming from. But, you know, it cost me $50,000 just to introduce myself to the lawyer I ended up meeting. And the twist in my book, and I give way more details, but I actually beat the federal government with that case. They had to actually stand before the judge and say that they was wrong. You know, my brother lied. That was after me spending like $250,000. Well, another piece that people don't understand, when you beat the federal government, that's not supposed to happen. So what happened was 9 months later, they came back with a whole different case. And it was a tax case against me going back to my first year out of school. And a lot of things happened in the midst of this. My mother found out she had cancer just from the stress that was dealing with of her sons going through this. And basically they came up with a tax case, but my oldest brother, I had a brother older than the brother I just was referencing you, was my tax preparer. And so I knew everything was straight. I knew everything was gonna be straight, like, oh, it must be some kind of confusion. But what happened with that situation was the feds actually went to that brother, put him in a situation, found out that he had did over 200 incorrect tax documents and was gonna take him away for 5 years, and they leveraged him and made him turn into an informant against me, and he basically lied to help himself out. And so what had happened was I was up to about $500,000 of fighting for 5 years, beating the first case, then taking on another journey of fighting the federal government. And it came to a situation where my lawyer said, hey, we could beat them again, but they're gonna keep doing this forever. You run out of money, and it might be best to just fold and try to take a plea, and hopefully you don't go to prison. And so I'll leave to the story, you know, what actually happened with the federal sentencing component, but that's the gist of my story. And my story is based off of the biblical story of Cain and Abel, because you know, if you know anything about that, you know, the older brother, because of jealousy or whatever the case may be, took out his younger brother. And so it kind of in a way happened to me twice. And so that was kind of, we loosely built my story off of that.
Wow. Okay. That's, you know, on one hand, you know, like, none of it's good, first and foremost. Let me just say, none of it is good at all, you know. Right. You know, one brother putting the blame on you, you know, because his situation wasn't, you know, together.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's the government being the government, but to go to the oldest brother and squeeze him, you know, knowing that, hey, he did the work and the work was good, but you finna squeeze me on something, you know, from way back when or what have you, and you really gonna squeeze me on this, so I have to flip on my brother and turn in my relative and be an informant. You know, that just that just drives the state further in between people, man. And you know, you have that divide, and at the end of the day,
about my family. Yeah, think about my family. Like, so when I had to go to court, though, my brother actually is with them as an informant, willing to get on the stand to testify on the things that he did. And so, you know, our dad is in the courtroom. My mother is in the courtroom. Our mutual family, friends. So, you know, the division and how it tore apart my family, you know, it's just a lot. And that's kind of like what my book kind of talk about.
Hey, man, look, jealousy, expectations, you know, like, that's real. And I mean, hey, man, this book sounds very, 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 very interesting. Very interesting. So now let me just ask you, man, like, you know, I know we just sat up here and talked about some things, but, you know, you talk about mental health a lot, you know, I know. And like, in your opinion, like, why do we have all these stigmas in the Black community when it comes to mental health? You know, like, it's, oh, you know, they crazy, or, you know, oh, you know, they crazy, you know, and like, pretty much in like a joking sense, but people really don't understand how words really have an effect on you, even when you're joking.
Right. And really, the truth of the matter is, where we from, or in that demographic of people, it's just pain on pain on top of pain on top of pain. And so everybody really hurt, to be honest, in some kind of capacity. And it's a sign of weakness, right? To verbalize what you heard about or what you're dealing with, because to get through day by day, you kind of got to be strong. You got to be resilient, and showing your weakness to someone that's trying to, or showing your weakness make you susceptible to be hurt, right? Like, if somebody know what you weak at or what you heard about, that's an easy way to hurt you. And so you have to put on this exterior kind of position to maneuver day in and day out in the hood or in the city just to get through. And you gotta be very, very sure of yourself to just kind of verbalize that. And to be honest, it ain't a lot of help with that where we from, right? Like, when I was growing up, you know, mental health wasn't like a topic or whatever the case may be. It took for me I was 20. This was in the midst of me fighting the case. So I was like late 20s, where I hit a wall. And when I realized that I had hit a wall was, I work out every day. And this specific day, I went to the gym, and I'm in the midst of fighting cases back and forth from Houston. And I went to go work out, and I always warm up on the bench press, right, with the bar, which is something I could do probably 100 times. And I literally couldn't pick up the bar off my chest, like the 45-pound bar. And it's funny because, you know, some days when I go work out, if I haven't had a snack or I haven't ate well, I'll be like, oh, I'm tired a little bit. So I was able to get the bar back up, and I was like, let me go get a snack from the front of the gym and like some chips or something. Yeah. And I took a break, and I was like, let me get my playlist together. And I went back, and I was struggling to lift up the bar. And that's when I knew, like, oh shit, like I'm burnt out. I'm something wrong. And so that's what started me to go down the journey of what was going on. And the truth of the matter, I was just burnt out mentally. I was depressed. I was exhausted just from years and years, and I can't really put into perspective what it feel like to fight the federal government day in and day out, what they doing. I lost 300 points off my credit score. I got kicked out of Wells Fargo. My mom got subpoenaed into court. They were running down to my offices. So they was attacking me in ways that I can't really break down to anybody that had a bank account shared with me. All my business bank accounts got shut down. It's a tactic that they do to break you down to the point that you just fold.
Yeah.
But reference to the mental health component, you know, my big brothers who I looked up to my whole life, I was now in this situation where they have made a stance to help themselves out to go against me. So even though I was this confident guy, what I was, years of that, it just started breaking me down. And so it came to a point where I was just like done. I remember being in the house for like a week and my friend coming over like, bro, I've been knowing you your whole life. I never seen you not get out of the bed. I never seen you not go to the gym. And that's when I realized like that something wrong with me. And it wasn't a physical thing. It was something going on in my head.
Yeah. And see, so that's my point. That's my point. Because a lot of times in our community, man, they have, okay, so there's a term in psychology. It's called languishing. Okay? Languishing is between depression and laziness. Okay? So you may start off with just being lazy, you know, due to whatever, like, you know, I just ain't got it in me today. I'm just being lazy. Right. All of a sudden, that laziness just goes on and on and on. You're not quite depressed, but you ain't lazy. You just, I don't know. So we have that bad in a community where languishing becomes depression, man. Simple, you know, because these are just some of my observations, you know. If you don't talk about the issue and it continues to go on and on and on, it manifests itself into like other avenues that you just may not have any control of. Hey, you know what? I just said something very bizarre. I just did something very out of turn. I don't know why I did this, but I just did this and I keep doing it and I don't understand why. Or I've seen it where, okay, a person has a diagnosis of something and people still alienate them.
Right. Exactly.
Because of their misunderstandings. Not the person who's been diagnosed, but because of their understandings, they feel as though
the lack of knowledge of what they're dealing with.
There you go. So because I don't understand what it is, I'm just going to alienate myself and, you know, my child or whoever. I mean, man, how many times have you seen it where you're walking down, a person's walking down the street, usually a man's walking down the street. And let's just say it's a black man. If it's a black man walking down the street and there's a woman, black woman, white woman, it doesn't matter because I've just noticed this is how we are in this day and time. Man, it's to the point psychologically, everybody's made to fear or, you know, be cautious when we're walking down the street.
Right.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if they're the same race or a different race. Psychologically, man, it's to, hey, you know what? That guy's coming down the street. George is coming down the street. Man, let me be, you know, defensive. Let me be cautious. Let me grip my purse a little bit tight. Let me not make eye contact and keep my head down and walk past real fast. You know what I'm saying? Something of that nature. And when you add those things in, even though it's nonverbal, everything I just said is nonverbal. Okay?
Exactly.
Man, I haven't uttered a word. They haven't uttered a word, but it's just the psychology, man. Like we really have to work on this. You know, man, we as black men need to work on expressing our feelings, especially to other black men. Man, saying I love you is not a sign of weakness. Saying that something's wrong with me is not a sign of weakness. You are really acknowledging, man, like you're acknowledging something's wrong. Like you have the insight enough to know that, hey, something ain't right. Something's wrong. Okay, so let me express it. But I'm not gonna say only in our community, but in our community, sometimes when you do those things and you're asking for help, you still get laughed at. You still get berated. You still get shunned. You still get looked at a certain type of way. So how how can we just really like look past that, get past that, especially as Black men? Look here, man. Father's Day is coming up. Juneteenth is coming up. You hear it all the time. How can we be better? How can this be better? Look, man, Black men, it starts with us.
Right. And not only, like, I don't have it all figured out, but I know a position that I could take is just having these conversations that we have. And so that's why I take this stance, and I have no problem just sharing my story, or just, you know, and hopefully, you know, just day in and day as I keep pushing my story, I'm helping change that narrative of making it okay. Like, yo, you can talk about these different type of things, and like, you dealing with this or you dealing with that, and that's what I do. I use on my platform. I let people know to go get my book, but at the same time, I share my therapy sessions on my platform. So it's showing, you know, what it looks like. A lot of kids where I'm from don't even know what therapy is, or they think it's something that they see on TV. They don't know. I actually sit down with a Black lady, and like I talk normal. I don't have to articulate in a certain kind of manner, and I actually show my personal stuff. I show personal things that people probably wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, but I feel like I'm using myself as an example and shining light on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, the best example you can ever use is yourself. And right. I mean, if you're sitting up here and you're trying to like shed the stigma that mental health is taboo, or, you know, it's for these types of people, no, man, like, we really need this. And look, I'm having therapy right now. I'm talking to my therapist, man. My therapist I am giving my therapist feedback. They're giving me feedback. We're like working this out. And as you said, the more you talk about it, the more comfortable you feel. It's not really looked at as a stigma anymore.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's not something so taboo, like, oh, well, I don't really like to talk about it. No. Like, I have no issue in discussing, you know, right, mental health and these things or what have you. Okay. Yeah. So now you mentioned your platform. What platform is it, and where can we, you know, find it?
So I use my Instagram the most. That was the most easiest way for me to kind of just push my book and kind of just show a lot of stuff. I actually got like my paperwork for my cases. I actually have like voiceovers of, like, my phone was actually tapped during this time period. So I actually have voiceovers. I have the last conversation that me and my brother had on my Instagram page. I got conversations that my mother and my brother had on my Instagram page. I have, like I say, my therapy sessions. Every week I have a candid conversation with other clinical psychiatrists. We have conversations about just stuff in the Black community and referencing the mental health. But my Instagram page is 2X crossed, basically representing like the double cross, but it's the number 2X crossed. And you can find me there. You know, in there you can find a link to my Amazon page about my book. But that right there is, you can find me every day, all day.
Okay, that's what it is. All right. So now, where can we get that book?
The book is on Amazon. It's called Double Cross. If you type in Double Cross, I have the ebook. People like to read the digital thing, and I have the hard copy, the soft copy as well, with Amazon to overnight it to you. But if you type in Double Cross George Johnson, it'll come up.
Okay, that's what's up, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there it is. Okay, man, Double Cross, and hey, go out there and get that book. Okay, you see it on Amazon, right?
On Amazon, for sure.
I know y'all got that Prime account. I know half of y'all out there, okay? It'll be there the next day. Go ahead and order. And leave a review and thumbs up. There you go.
I need all that, for sure.
All right.
Leave that.
See, you know, when people be promoting that book on Amazon, they be leaving that part out. Look here. Like it, right, and leave the review too, okay?
I need that.
You can do all that. All right. Man, look, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for being a guest on my show, man. Like, I'm really digging everything that you're talking about up here.
Appreciate it.
Man, we've come to the last question on the show. Man, we've really been talking about a lot of stuff. But, man, so let me just ask, Mr. George Johnson, what is the one word that best describes you
the first thing I think of is a couple different words, but what I'll go with is resilient. And I say that because I'm an athlete, and my whole life I've been working out. And part of the makeup of an athlete, if you're gonna go far, is to be resilient. Just keep going, keep pushing. You might have bad days, good days, but in the end, down the road, if you just be resilient, you're gonna be successful. And so I was able to translate that mindset into the business world. But my toughest task I had to deal with was this situation I just went through that my book is about. And what I can just hang my hat on is that I was resilient no matter what. I was up against the federal government. I was up against my family. But I was just resilient. I never fell. I never fold. I never went against my morals and principles. I never was like, hey, my brother doing this to me, so how about I allow somebody else to help myself out? It was like, no matter what, I just took my course, and I was just resilient day in and day out. Some days I couldn't get out of the bed because I just was mentally just drained. But resiliency was what got me through into where I'm at now.
Okay, I like that, bro. Man, I like that, man. And I'm just gonna throw another word out there, man. Integrity.
Right, that's a fact. Right.
Real, like, let's just keep it real, man. Like, true, you do have to be resilient to go through all that and keep it, man, and just to make it from point A to point B to point C, yes, to make it through all that. But even going through all that, just like, hey, this is who I am. I'm never gonna fold. Man, I'm solid like that. I believe in XYZ. This is going to get me through, and my integrity will show it. You know what I'm saying? And it did. And that's what I can say. A lot of people tell that story and sometimes it don't work out. But in this story, me keeping my morals and principles, I really stood on it. I was willing to do whatever it takes and whatever came with that. And it actually worked out in the best. I didn't do anything that I can't wake up in the morning, look at myself and feel sick about. Like, I wake up in the morning, look at myself and be like, man, I kept it so solid. I didn't do nothing. Nothing a coward. I know nothing cowardly, anything. And it feels so good to get on the back end and not look back and be like, I got through that, but like I had to do that. Like, it's nothing that I regret doing or anything. And basically, that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, man, you still got everything intact. You still got your honor. You still got your pride. Even more, it speaks even more of who you are now because, like you said, you went through all that, didn't fold, still solid, I'm still here.
Exactly.
Come on. And I'm still living life the way it needs to be lived, and I'm going about my business. There you go. Okay, man. Look here. George Johnson, man. I thank you for being on this platform and blessing us, man, with like your story, the transparency, and everything else, brother. Man, much success to you, for real.
Likewise, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come share my story.
Man, no problem at all, brother. No problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I've been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Word with Ty Brownlow, or you can just go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Definitely get this interview plus other great interviews. George Johnson, we out. Peace.